Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to our study on Proverbs. We'll do the second and third chapters today. Before we start, I'd like to share something with you and ask that you pray for me. I'm diabetic, as most of you know, and the consequences of diabetes are numerous. One of them has to do with vision, and I have what's called diabetic retinopathy, which means there's some swelling in the back of my eye on the retina. And I'm having some difficulties. I take shots. They give me injections in my eyes to keep the swelling down and make me able to see well. But one of the side effects to the medication that's injected is that sometimes your vision is a little bit blurred. So if I slow down or sometimes while we're going through the lesson, it's because I have to let my eyes focus so that I can see the text and the notes that I have on the paper here. So if you would pray for me, it's an ongoing thing. I've been diabetic for 30 years probably. It's just one of the things that go with the blessing God gave me with diabetes to keep me humble. So I just wanted to share that with you before we start. Now, the second chapter of Proverbs, the father is instructing his son on the efforts that are needed to attain wisdom and the moral benefits of wisdom's attainment and the protection of wisdom from immoral people. So we'll begin with the first 6 verses that Melanie's going to read to us about the pursuit of wisdom.
My son, if you accept my words and store up my commands within you, turning your ear to wisdom and applying your heart to understanding, indeed, if you call out for insight and cry aloud for understanding, and if you look for it as silver and search for it as a hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding.
Verses 1 through 4. There are 8 verbs used in these verses. They include accept, store up, turning, applying, call, cry, look, and search. The objects of these activities are the teacher's words and commands. Wisdom and understanding, and insight and understanding, which means discernment. Effort must be expended for one to become wise. Getting wisdom involves an openness, retention, hearing with the ear, applying with the heart, requesting and diligent searching. Verses 5 and 6. The 3 ifs in verses 1, 3, and 4 are followed then by the word then, which introduces the result. Seeking and valuing wisdom lead to a person's understanding or discerning the fear of the Lord and knowing God. This is the same truth that's stated in verse 7, which follows. The Lord I'm sorry, they're in 1:7, not the second chapter. The Lord is the source of that wisdom. And as a person fears the Lord, he gains wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So we are to pursue wisdom. One of the reasons we should do that is the moral benefits of wisdom. Those are spoken of in verses 7 through 10, which we'll look at now.
He holds success in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless. For he guards the course of the just, and protects the way of his faithful ones. Then you will understand what is right and just and fair, every good path. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul.
Wisdom gives positive, health-inducing moral benefits. It keeps one from evil and contributes to holiness. Wisdom is a matter of the heart and of moral conduct, not just intellectual attainment. And this is made clear by the words upright and blameless, the just and the faithful ones. Elsewhere in Proverbs, the word for victory is translated sound judgment. It means success. The result of sound judgment. Like a shield, God protects those who by his wisdom are morally upright. Those who are his. Moral living enables a person to be equitable with others, to do what is right and just and fair. Fair translates the same word rendered upright in 2:7. One's conduct is suggested by the synonyms walk, course, way, and path. A person who strives for wisdom will find that it will enter his heart. Obtaining wisdom requires diligence on man's part in pursuing God's will, yet wisdom is a gift from God. Having such knowledge from God gives inner joy or pleasure. Verses 11 through 23 talk about the protection of wisdom from immoral people. Wisdom is valuable, therefore it should be sought after. For one thing, it guards from wicked men and wicked women and keeps one going on the right paths. Let's look at verses 11 through 15 now.
Discretion will protect you, and understanding will guard you. Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men, from men whose words are perverse, who have left the straight paths to walk in dark ways, who delight in doing wrong and rejoice in the perverseness of evil, whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways.
A general statement about wisdom's protection links verse 7 and 8 with verses 12 through 15. God protects, and the discretion he gives also protects. It takes on added meaning when they are related to the warning in verses 10 through 19 in the first chapter. The ways and words of the wicked are perverse. Perverse and perverseness are the same word in Hebrew. They come from the verb to turn, or turn from, or overturn, and they suggest something that is turned away from normal. The Hebrew word occurs 8 times in Proverbs. Deceit, confusing are also used. Such people turn away from the straight paths to dark, evil ways. They even enjoy their perversity their crooked ways. Crooked translates twisted, which is also used in later chapters and interpreted as corrupt. It's rendered perverse several times and wicked in chapter 22. Their deeds are distorted or a distortion of morality. Ways and paths help relate this passage to the other parts of chapter 2. We're going to review verses 16 to 19 now.
Wisdom will save you also from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words, who has left the partner of her youth and ignored the covenant she made before God. Surely her house leads down to death, and her paths to the spirits of the dead. None who go to her return or attain the paths of life.
Wisdom also protects from immoral women. The adulterer and the wayward wife are synonymous terms in Hebrew. The first term can mean a non-Israelite, like Ruth, or a woman who, because of her immorality, is outside the circle of her proper relations. Whereas wicked men use perverse words, the adulteress uses seductive words. The partner of her youth refers to her husband, and the covenant which is ignored is her marriage vows. Forgetting her commitment to her husband, she became promiscuous. To be involved with such a person in her house leads to death. Adultery puts a person on an irretrievable path that eventually results in physical death. We'll now look at verses 20 through 22.
Thus you will walk in the ways of the good, and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will live in the land, and the blameless will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the unfaithful will be torn from it.
A person who pursues wisdom avoids the wrong kind of people, and can have the right kind of companions, good men and the righteous. Merely escaping immorality is insufficient for a man of wisdom, or a woman of wisdom. They must also progressively pursue the good. And as a result, God blesses them. For the Israelites residing in the land of Canaan was a sign of God's favor. The contrast between the upright and the blameless, who will enjoy God's agricultural prosperity, and the wicked and the unfaithful, who will no longer be in the land because of either exile or death, recalls the contrast in Psalm 1:6, which Melanie's going to read for us.
For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction.
We move now to chapter 3, the blessings of wisdom. After another strong encouragement to pursue his teaching, the father teacher gave 4 commands. Each deals with the danger of misusing a gift of God. The son is told, A, to trust in God and not lean on his own understanding. B, to fear God and not be wise in his own eyes. C, to honor God and not fail to give to him. And D, to appreciate God and not misunderstand his discipline and its value. These verses follow an alternating pattern of commands and rewards. In other words, verse 1 has a command, 2 has a reward, 3 has a reward, 4 has a command. And they alternate back and forth for the rest of the chapter. The rewards include longevity and prosperity, favor with God and people, fewer problems, health, prosperity, and awareness of God's love. Now let's look at the first 4 verses, which talk about the appeal to follow the Father's teaching.
My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man.
Again, the son is urged both negatively, do not forget, and positively, keep, to heed what he is being taught. If these instructions are part of one's inner life, 2 benefits will be realized. Longevity, a sign of God's blessing, and prosperity. The word for prosperity is often translated peace. And though it includes peace and prosperity, it is broader in meaning. It also suggests wholesomeness, health, and harmony. Verses 3 and 4. Love translates loyalty to one's covenant or commitment. That quality, along with dependability, should grace one's life like a neck. Not like a neck, like a necklace, a neck piece. This is not intended to encourage phylacteries being used. I guess we all know what a phylactery is. It's a little leather box within which there is scripture from the Torah written on vellum. And that's not what they're trying to do here. That's not relevant to what's being taught here. So it's being taught to encourage strong association with and adherence to the parents' teaching. The results of such adherence are favor and good nature, a good reputation. Favor translates to be gracious or to show favor. Good name is rendered good understanding. And the Hebrew word includes the idea of competence and effectiveness and therefore reputation by prudence. The command to trust in the Lord and not lean on one's own understanding is discussed in verses 5 and 6, which Melanie will read for us.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight.
To trust in the Lord wholeheartedly means one should not rely or lean on their own understanding, for human insights are never enough. To us, God's ways are incomprehensible. Yet, he is trustworthy. All the wisdom a person may acquire can never replace the need for full trust in God's superior ways. Heart in the Hebrew refers to one's emotions, but more often to his intellect, such as understanding, discernment, reflection, or will. As the person trusts in the Lord and acknowledge Him, this is not a nod of recognition, but an intimate knowledge of God in all His ways, he finds that God makes his path straight. And this means more than guidance. It means God removes the obstacles, making smooth the path or way of life, or perhaps better, bringing one to the appointed goal. Proverbs teaches that those who follow wisdom have an easier, less problematic life. Would be nice if we could remember that as we go through life. You know, so often our poor judgment causes us so many problems. So we might want to read Proverbs every morning to remind us that God will give us wisdom if we seek Him. The command to fear the Lord and not admire one's wisdom is discussed in verses 7 and 8, and we'll look at those.
Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones.
Young people who acquire wisdom need to remember that they did not become wise by themselves. Wisdom comes from God. A heart awareness of and proper response to God, in other words, fear of the Lord, help prevent the evil of pride. As a result, God gives health and vigor, health in one's bones, mentioned several times in Proverbs, and it suggests, as is well known today, that spiritual and physical health are related. Honoring the Lord and not withholding one's offerings is discussed in verses 9 and 10.
Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine.
Now, in Israel, honoring the Lord with the first fruits of all one's crops was a way of expressing gratitude to Him for His provisions. It was a way of acknowledging God and His help. In return, God promised to fill the barns with grain and the vats with new wine. And new wine is literally fresh squeezed grape juice. In general, it's true that godliness results in gain, that piety brings prosperity, but in this kind of generalization common in Proverbs does not disallow God from making exceptions. Otherwise, God is invested in rather than honored. Proverbs 3:10 is well balanced by verses 11 and 12. Let's read those.
My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent His rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those He loves, as a father the son He delights in.
Appreciate the Lord and do not misunderstand His discipline. These verses say that God, who can be trusted to smooth out obstacles and bring one to his appointed goal and to supply one's material needs, demonstrates His love by discipline. The warning to the son or daughter is twofold. Do not despise or reject or take lightly the Lord's discipline. And secondly, don't resent it. Don't resent His rebuke. Physical punishment and verbal correction are hard to accept, but they demonstrate God's loving concern. The same is true of a parent's discipline of his children. Loathing such discipline, thinking that God disciplines because he enjoys causing pain, overlooks the benefits that come from such correction. Verses 13 and 15 talk about the high value of wisdom. Let's look at them.
Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her.
Because discipline brings happiness, and because wealth often does not bring genuine happiness, wisdom's value far exceeds the worth of precious metals such as silver, gold, and rubies. I didn't know ruby was a metal. The word profitable and yields better returns or brings a higher yield are language of a trader or an investor. What wisdom returns to her possessor is of greater value than anything gold or silver can purchase. Let's look at verses 16 to 18.
Long life is in her right hand, in her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed.
Wisdom, personified as a woman, gives with both hands, that is, generously. Her right hand gives longevity, and her left hand she gives riches and more honor. Besides giving a long life, wisdom also provides a quality of life, pleasantness and peace. Long life with no thought for its quality could be a curse rather than a blessing. A quality kind of life is often mentioned in Proverbs, and there are too many separate verses and chapters for me to quote all those to you, but it's throughout the book. A long and fruitful life is expressed in the figure of a tree. Much as the tree of life was a source of life, so wisdom is a source of life. Verses 19 and 20, we'll read right now.
By wisdom the Lord laid the earth's foundations. By understanding he set the heavens in place. By his knowledge the watery depths were divided, and the clouds let drop the dew.
When God created the world, he used wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. If God used these, then certainly people need them. The relationship between God and wisdom in his creation is discussed in more detail in chapter 8, and we will look at that closely when we get to that chapter. The value of wisdom in building relationships with others is covered in verses 21 to 35. We're going to break those down some. First, we're going to look at verse 21 by itself.
My son, do not let wisdom and understanding out of your sight. Preserve sound judgment and discretion.
The familiar "my son" introduces a plea so that the son embrace valued qualities. Sound judgment translate the Hebrew word that is rendered victory. Discernment is translated discretion. Now let's look at 22 through 26.
They will be life for you, an ornament to grace your neck. Then you will go on your way in safety, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Have no fear of sudden disaster, or of the ruin that overtakes the wicked. For the Lord will be at your side, and will keep your foot from being snared.
These verses mention a number of benefits that come to those who heed the exhortation in verse 21. Sorry. These benefits include life, safety, sleep, avoidance of troubles, confidence, and avoidance of the traps set by the wicked. The long life referred to in 22 may be partially attributed to the peace of mind graphically pictured in verses 23 to 26. Now Melanie will read verses 27 to 35 for us.
Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, "Come back tomorrow and I'll give it to you," when you already have it with you. Do not plot harm against your neighbor who lives trustfully near you. Do not accuse anyone for no reason, when they have done you no harm. Do not envy the violent, or choose any of their ways, for the Lord detests the perverse, but takes the upright into his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the home of the righteous. He mocks proud mockers, but shows favor to the humble and oppressed. The wise inherit honor, but fools get only shame.
These verses include 5 sample maxims about relationships with others, with verses 27 to 31, each beginning with the words, "do not." These are examples of what it means to be wise, and they may be grouped into 3 relationships. The command, "do not withhold good from those who deserve it," is literally, "do not withhold good from its owners." The idea is fulfill an obligation such as paying wages to a hired laborer. Proverbs 3:28 seems to reinforce the point in verse 27, but it may expand the idea to being generous to the poor. This right and just and fair, or it is right and just and fair, to harm a neighbor violates his trust and accrues, and to accuse him falsely violates the 9th commandment, which is actually Exodus 20:16. Melanie, read that for us, please.
You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor.
To plot translates to plow, which comes from the idea of planting being thought of or devised as a furrow in a field and are plowed. Envying violent men because they see the money he has or the pleasure he supposedly enjoys is a do not. But God gives 4 reasons why such envy is uncalled for. 1, the Lord hates such a perverse person, whereas the upright, in contrast, enjoys fellowship with God. Secondly, the Lord curses the wicked but blesses the righteous. Third, God mocks arrogant mockers, causing their action to boomerang on them, whereas the humble receive his grace. 4, the wise are honored, but fools are shamed. These verses show that the words upright, righteous, humble, the wise are basically synonyms in the book of Proverbs. And we will continue with chapters 4 and 5 next week, which will exhort the students or the children to acquire wisdom. We look forward to seeing you then. Hope you'll enjoy a little more of our neighbor's weed eater. Y'all have a great week.